Hello everyone. I'm thrilled to take you on an intriguing journey today about Selene Thorne, a teacher whose life was profoundly transformed by a near-death experience. This event opened her eyes to a radically different perspective on God, one that really takes a swipe at traditional religious ideas. Get ready for an adventure filled with surprising turns. But before we jump into Selene's story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Feel free to drop a comment. And if you're a newcomer, why not subscribe and turn on notifications? You won't want to miss any of our captivating tales. So let's get started. Imagine Selene Thorne, an elementary school teacher living in Pine Hill, Oregon. Although the events I'm about to share happened over 30 years ago, they feel incredibly relevant today. Selene has always considered herself a grounded person. She couldn't wrap her head around believing in things she couldn't see. To her, life was pretty routine, teaching, hanging out with friends, and managing her household. Just the usual daily grind, really. Selene's upbringing was pretty secular. Her family attended church occasionally, but it felt more like a ritual than anything deeply meaningful. As she grew older, her skepticism only deepened. Science, in her mind, had explanations for everything, and she dismissed anything outside its scope as fanciful imagination. I remember her mentioning a fiery debate in college where she firmly stated that the concept of God was merely a human invention, a crutch for those unwilling to face reality. Fast forward a few years, and the tables began to turn for her. By then, she was married to Caden Holt, a wonderful guy with a steadfast faith. He often encouraged her to explore spirituality, but Selene found his beliefs a bit naive, seeing them as lacking evidence. Life seemed predictable until one day she noticed a small lump on the right side of her neck. At first, it didn't bother her too much, but as time went on, it started to become more concerning. As a teacher, her self-confidence took a hit. She dreaded the idea of feeling self-conscious in front of her students. Worried about how it affected her appearance, Selene went to see Dr. Alistair Quinlan. He reassured her that surgery wasn't urgent, but Selene felt strongly about having the lump removed. The thought of a goiter was unsettling, not just for her health, but also for her pride. The day of the surgery had finally come, and to say I was anxious would be an understatement. Still, I was determined. I remember lying on that cold operating table, the bright lights shining down. Anesthesia started to take hold as I listened to Dr. Quinlan's calm voice nearby, soothing my racing heart. I shut my eyes, reassuring myself that a few hours later, I would wake up with my neck bandaged, finally free from that pesky goiter. Then, in the blink of an eye, everything shifted. It felt like an invisible force was pulling me away from myself. Suddenly, I was thrust into utter darkness, like being swept into an endless tunnel, an experience so surreal it was terrifying. Panic surged through me. I longed to scream, to grasp something solid. Yet, I was adrift in a void, everything fading into obscurity. Time lost its meaning. Was it seconds? Minutes? It was impossible to tell. Without warning, the sensation of falling ceased. I found myself surrounded by an extraordinary warmth, a light more profound than anything I'd ever encountered. It wasn't blinding. Instead, it enveloped me in tranquility. As I adjusted to this brilliance, the world around me began to take shape. Before me stretched a narrow bridge adorned with golden railings shimmering in the light. Beneath it flowed a crystal-clear stream, the sound of the water soothing, truly unlike anything I had ever known. Drawn to its beauty, I moved toward the bridge. That's when I realized I wasn't by myself. On the opposite side stood a radiant figure, glowing with an otherworldly light. As I drew closer, she came into focus. A breathtaking being with flowing golden hair that seemed to float effortlessly. Her wings were magnificent and translucent, appearing to be crafted from the very light that surrounded us. With a gentle smile, she conveyed a sense of familiarity without saying a word. In that moment, I just knew her name, Lumiel. Next to her was a group of boys, all clad in pristine white shirts, creating a sense of serene unity. As I stood there alongside the children and Monsignor Gabriel Moretti, I couldn't help but feel a deep connection with each of them. Their eyes sparkled with an infectious hope and joy, creating an immediate bond, as if we had known one another for ages. In that instant, all of my past beliefs and doubts faded into the background. I found myself facing something that was utterly beyond logical explanation. forcing me to rethink my understanding of life and mortality. Yet instead of feeling lost in confusion, I experienced a comforting clarity, a warm, enveloping presence that felt like a cosmic hug, offering me a peek into the most profound mysteries of existence. An extraordinary force began to envelop me, making the very fabric of reality feel alive. It was as if I was being pulled into a connection with the divine, a sensation that transcended the notion of a distant god or a booming voice. Here, I encountered an immense presence, a pure energy that connected everything around me. In that surreal moment, I felt capable of grasping the entirety of existence all at once. The love radiating from this presence was overwhelmingly powerful, wrapping me in pure compassion and understanding. All the religious teachings I had come across paled in comparison to this experience. It dawned on me that no amount of written scripture or philosophy could truly capture the essence of the divine. It soared far beyond human understanding or expression. This realization hit me like a tidal wave, shaking the very roots of everything I had accepted as truth. I, a person who prided myself on rational thinking and skepticism, was now confronted with a truth that defied all logic, while simultaneously feeling like the ultimate reality of the universe. For the first time, I thought I could see beyond the superficial layer of physical existence, catching a glimpse of the true nature of being. In that moment, I understood that God wasn't a distant figure on a celestial throne, passing judgment on our actions. Instead, I sensed an all-encompassing force, an expansive universal consciousness permeating every inch of the cosmos. Every tiny particle, every living creature, and every fleeting thought contributed to this greater awareness that connected us all. Imagine discovering that you're deeply connected to a greater consciousness, realizing there's no actual separation between you and a divine essence. As time passed, I felt this incredible link to all that exists, everything and everyone tied together like celestial bodies in the universe. This overwhelming sense of unity was both comforting and profound. In this elevated state of awareness, it struck me that life is much more than just our physical existence. Even when our bodies no longer function, we somehow carry on. What I once dreaded as death and ultimate farewell, now manifested as a transition, a movement into a different realm of being. I came to understand that our essence goes beyond mere living and dying. It's about evolving spiritually and broadening our consciousness, while simultaneously shaping the world around us. Every decision, every thought we entertain, plays a role in the intricate tapestry of existence. This realization led me to grasp that love, in its most expansive form, serves as the strongest force within the universe. It transcends simplistic notions of romantic or familial bonds. It's an encompassing, unconditional love that unites everything and propels the growth of the cosmos. As the depth of these insights began to lessen, I felt a significant transformation inside me. I knew without a doubt that I could never revert to my former self. My perspective, beliefs, and values had all undergone a complete overhaul. Even though it seemed nearly impossible to articulate such an extraordinary experience, I felt an undeniable urge to share this truth with anyone willing to listen. Just when I thought I had a handle on the magnitude of it all, something unexpected happened. It was as if an invisible force yanked me back, reminiscent of falling into a dark void. This time, though, the withdrawal was intense, abruptly pulling me away from that blissful state. The speed of this descent was staggering, and instead of fear, I was gripped by a profound sense of loss, longing to stay in that peaceful realm of understanding. Yet, I found myself unable to express any of it. In an instant, I was hovering above the operating room, witnessing an extraordinary scene. It felt surreal, like I was a character in a movie, observing my life unfold from a distance. Below me lay my body, motionless on the operating table, while Dr. Elias Granger and his team rushed about, visibly anxious. I watched them, oddly detached, as they desperately tried to bring me back to life. The air buzzed with the steady drumming of monitors and hushed conversations. "We're losing her," one of the voices broke through the tension. Imagine the bizarre scene, my still, pale body on the bed while I felt more alive than ever. Then came the startling realization I could hear my own screams. Not the faint echoes from that unconscious figure, but raw wails that surged from deep within me, a desperate plea rejecting the pull back into the physical world. They rushed me swiftly to the infirmary, yet it felt like my cries went unheard. I was caught in an emotional tug of war, my spirit suspended between two realms, not quite knowing where I belonged. Slowly, a force started pulling me back to my body, but what a jarring experience it was, like trying to squeeze into snug clothes after freedom of flight. When I finally blinked open my eyes in the infirmary, a whirlwind of emotions overtook me. Joy surged through me, as if every cell celebrated being alive. Yet, mingling with that elation was a profound sense of nostalgia for my recent journey, a deep yearning that twisted within my soul. The nurses hovering nearby looked at me with a blend of relief and confusion, their expressions mirroring my mixed feelings. I found myself torn between smiles and tears, grappling to put my emotions into words. Just then, the phone at my bedside rang, slicing through the moment. One of the nurses answered, and after a brief exchange, she turned to me, surprise pooling in her eyes. "It's your mother," she exclaimed. "She wants to speak to you." In a daze, I took the phone and hearing my mother's voice snapped me back into reality. "I'm fine, Mom." I reassured her, though I knew fine hardly captured the depth of what I felt. As we chatted, I struggled to find the words that could convey the surreal experiences I'd just been through. How could I make her understand something so unlike ordinary life? In that moment, it dawned on me. My journey extended far beyond just healing from surgery. I was faced with a deeper quest to find a way to weave this remarkable experience into the daily fabric of my life. As I mused over all that had happened, a long-buried memory unexpectedly surfaced, demanding my attention. Lying in that hospital bed, I felt as if some door in my mind had been flung wide open. A flood of unusual memories began to rush in, and one in particular stood out, taking me back to my adventurous backpacking days in Asia during the 1970s. I can't quite put my finger on the name of the bustling city I was in back then, but I remember the chaotic scene vividly. I was trying to squeeze onto a crowded bus amidst the uproar of people jostling and shouting in a language that felt completely foreign. In the middle of that commotion, something remarkable happened. I could hear my mother's voice calling out to me, almost as if she were right there beside me. Her words brought me back to my childhood, back to those moments when she'd call out my name to keep me safe. "Kara!" she shouted, her tone filled with concern. Instinctively, I clutched my backpack, pressing it against my chest for security. Just then, a man rushed past me, nearly knocking me over, his hands brushing dangerously close to my bag that held all my important belongings. Back then, I barely registered how frightening that moment was. I was too focused on catching the bus and getting where I needed to go. But lying in this ward now, that memory played out in my mind with startling precision. How could my mother have sensed my peril from thousands of miles away? It made me wonder, did she possess some sort of psychic ability that I never acknowledged? Suddenly, I was flooded with memories of other times when it seemed like she had an uncanny awareness of things that shouldn't have been on her radar. I had always shrugged those instances off as coincidences or figments of my imagination, but now they felt significant. What if our connection was deeper than I had ever considered, transcending the physical? During my brush with death, I got a glimpse of something beyond this world. Did my mother tap into that same spiritual connection? Those thoughts shook me. I yearned to reach out to her, to ask if she remembered that hectic day in Asia, and if she had sensed something was wrong. But fear held me back. What if she thought I was losing my grip on reality? Only days ago, I'd have scoffed at such ideas as utter nonsense. As my thoughts whirled, the door swung open, and a nurse walked in, pulling me back to reality. She had come to check my vitals and see if I needed any pain relief. I responded mechanically, still caught in the web of that distant memory, wrestling with the profound questions that had surfaced. My encounters with the unknown completely disrupted everything I used to believe. Suddenly, I found myself staring into a world filled with endless possibilities, yet I couldn't quite mesh those revelations with my daily life. After I finally got out of the hospital, my mind was racing with questions and thoughts. I realized it was time for a serious chat with my mother. There were so many things I needed clarity on, not just the experiences I had endured, but also that perplexing connection we shared. Time seemed to drag as I anxiously balanced my excitement about these new realizations with a gnawing fear of the unknown ahead. What more would I discover about myself, my family, and the world through this newly acquired lens? I thought leaving the hospital would mean slipping back into the regular rhythm of life, but instinctively, I knew things had changed forever. The events surrounding my surgery had left a deep imprint on me, one that I couldn't simply ignore. Instead of embracing this significant transformation, I made a choice that I now see as a misstep. I dove deeper into skepticism and atheism, clinging to my rationality like a lifeline. I threw myself into sports and the grind of daily life, each day becoming a whirlwind of running, teaching, grading, and lesson planning. I kept busy, as if any moment of stillness would bring flooding back all the troubling memories and unresolvable questions. Caden, my husband, was a constant presence, gently encouraging me to explore spirituality. He firmly believed in an existence beyond this life, seeing my experience as proof of what he believed. But every time he tried to talk about it, I'd deftly change the subject or walk away. Facing those emotions felt far too overwhelming. I remember one night vividly. Gabriel found me in tears on the bathroom floor. He held me close, asking what was wrong, and I longed to spill everything weighing on me. But the words wouldn't come. How could I express such confusion? How could I articulate an experience that had completely upended my worldview? In the end, I lied and told him it was just work stress. He didn't believe me, of course, but Gabriel still respected my silence, always patient and understanding, even when I felt unworthy of such kindness. As the months turned into years, I gradually felt myself morphing into a mere shadow of the person I once was. In the midst of staff meetings, I had earned a reputation as the voice of logic, the one always leaning towards reason, the embodiment of skepticism. Imagine this. For years, I rolled my eyes at any mention of the supernatural or spiritual moments. My thinking was simple. If I dismissed those ideas, I could somehow erase my past. But deep down, I was anything but composed. When evening descended and silence enveloped the world, memories would flood my mind, like a blend of calm mixed with the mystical presence of the angel Lumiel. There was a glimpse of something boundless and incomprehensible, and despite my efforts to shove it aside, that feeling lingered within. Then came the nightmares, cropping up more and more. I'd awaken feeling like I was falling into a bottomless pit or stuck in a freezing, dark void, desperately calling out for help. My heart would race, drenched in sweat from the panic. Caden was always there, ready to lend a hand, but articulating what truly haunted me felt impossible. I had tucked away my near-death experience, hoping it would simply disappear into the shadows of my memory. Yet that persistent feeling lurked, surfacing unexpectedly at the most inconvenient times. Reflecting on it all, it's hard to fathom the years I spent denying such an essential aspect of my life. How many opportunities did I miss for growth, simply because I was frightened to confront the unknown? Some truths, it seems, are stubborn and refuse to stay buried. They have a knack for resurfacing, no matter how much we try to hide them. Fast forward 35 years since that near-death brush with fate. I had spent all that time in denial, acting as if nothing significant had ever transpired. I became quite adept at changing the subject whenever spiritual discussions arose. But then, life, or perhaps destiny, had its own plans. One ordinary Sunday afternoon, while Caden was engrossed in a show and I was buried in grading papers, he called out excitedly, "You've got to see this!" I paused, wanting to stay focused, but my curiosity won out. I plopped down on the couch beside him, and there on the screen was a middle-aged woman named Selene Thorne sharing her story. As she delved into her own near-death experience, I felt my defenses beginning to crumble. At first, I considered slipping away, but her narrative captivated me. The vivid sensations and visions she described resonated deeply. Intense light, profound peace, encounters with celestial beings. As Selene Thorne listened, it was as if her own life story was being unveiled before her. She could almost feel her heart unfastening itself, ready to embrace the truth again. Her hands trembled. It was like a long-closed door was suddenly flung wide open. Memories she had neatly tucked away began flooding back, and they came with a startling clarity that overwhelmed her. She glanced at Caden Holt beside her, and the worry on his face showed that he could sense her turmoil. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. The words eluded her, and before she realized what was happening, tears began to flow freely down her cheeks. Once the interview came to a close, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Caden didn't utter a single word. Instead, he wrapped his arms around her, holding her close while she cried. It was a moment of deep release, relief mixed with a sense of awakening. After so many years of feeling like she was the only one carrying such experiences, she felt a genuine connection for the first time. In the months that followed, Selene threw herself into the world of spirituality and the mysteries of the afterlife. She intoxicated herself with books, reveled in enlightening documentaries, and dove into lively debates online. Each new piece of knowledge seemed to validate her own experiences, bit by bit. For the first time, she could think about her brush with death without being gripped by dread or skepticism. It dawned on her that her experience held significance, not just for her, but perhaps for others walking a similar path. One particularly restless night, she found herself deeply engrossed in a book about near-death encounters. When Caden stirred awake, he found her tears falling again, but this time they were tears of joy. "I finally understand," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I really get what I went through." It was a pivotal moment. Her entire belief system was being challenged in light of her growing comprehension. It felt as though she was waking from a long slumber, seeing the world anew. She also began to practice meditation, a concept she would have rolled her eyes at not that long ago. Through meditation, she rediscovered the serene state she had encountered during her near-death experience. It wasn't identical, but it served as a reminder that life has dimensions beyond what we can perceive with our senses. Meanwhile, her bond with Caden was evolving. She discovered the courage to peel back the layers of herself and reveal the secrets she had kept locked away for far too long. Caden's steadfast support and acceptance became essential as she navigated this new journey of self-discovery. Embracing this refreshing understanding of life and death lifted a heavy weight from my shoulders. The denial that had held me captive for so long began to fade away, replaced by an exhilarating sense of freedom and purpose that was completely new to me. With this newfound clarity guiding my path, I felt an urgent need to address my past and how it intertwined with my present. It was evident that I had to face those shadows and fully embrace what lay ahead of me. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, I found myself in my mother's garden, filled with anxiety about our upcoming conversation. The time had come to talk about something that had haunted me since my trip to Asia years ago. "Mom," I said, choosing my words thoughtfully, "do you remember that journey I took in the 70s? She nodded thoughtfully, curiosity evident on her face. Taking a deep breath to calm my nerves, I continued, "There was a moment when I could have sworn I heard you calling me, warning me of some impending danger. Do you recall anything about that?" To my surprise, my mother remained surprisingly calm. She gently squeezed my hand and said, "Oh, Selene, I've always sensed there was something special about our connection. That day, I had such a vivid dream where I saw you in danger. I woke up calling your name, convinced something was wrong." Her understanding stunned me, and I realized that my skepticism had held me back from fully appreciating a deeper bond with the world around me. All those years, I had dismissed the unexplainable, but here was my own mother, accepting it as a natural part of life. We spent hours reminiscing and uncovering shared experiences, moments that we had been too afraid to discuss for fear of judgment. This conversation marked a turning point for me. I had spent far too long ignoring an essential part of my identity. Gradually, I began to open my mind to the universe's mysteries, understanding that science doesn't cover everything. This new perspective didn't diminish the importance of scientific knowledge. Instead, it enriched my understanding of the world. Before long, I was introducing discussions on various spiritual beliefs in my social studies classes. To my surprise, the students were eager to jump in and share. They began recounting stories from their own families, contributing to a rich tapestry of beliefs woven together with personal experiences. One day after class, a student approached me, tears shimmering in her eyes. She shared her own experience of a near-drowning situation where she had encountered a bright light and felt an overwhelming peace wash over her. "I've never told a soul about this," Selene Thorne confessed, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "I always worried they'd think I was going crazy." In that moment, it hit me. My personal journey was larger than just my own experiences. It was transforming into a mission to create a welcoming space for others to share their unique stories. As I opened up about my own experiences, I realized I wasn't alone. Surrounding me were neighbors and colleagues, even the friendly cashier at the grocery store, each carrying their own hidden extraordinary moments. Inspired, I decided to host intimate gatherings at my place. These evenings turned into a refuge for open dialogue, where everyone could speak freely, free from judgment. With Caden Holt's unwavering encouragement by my side, I felt invigorated in my quest to build these connections. One cozy evening, as we snuggled together, my husband spoke up, his voice warm with happiness. "You finally found peace within yourself," he said, and I knew he was right. For the first time in years, I felt complete. The internal struggle I'd faced, that incessant tug-of-war between my rational mind and inexplicable experiences, began to fade into the background. Suddenly, I realized it was possible to embrace both facets of my personality. They were no longer in conflict. Instead, they harmonized beautifully. Thinking back to my past self, the skeptical and stubborn teacher, I felt a wave of compassion mixed with gratitude. I understood the fear and denial that had kept me trapped for so long, and I appreciated the winding path that had brought me to this significant moment. Now at 58, I feel more alive and connected than ever before. That frightening near-death experience, which once filled me with confusion, has evolved into a treasured part of my story. It has widened my perspective on the universe and the interconnections within it, and highlighted the importance of maintaining an open heart and mind in the face of the unknown. This inner transformation didn't only impact my personal life, it sent ripples throughout every aspect of my existence, especially in my role as a teacher. I began to see that my experiences could enrich my students' learning. Gradually, I introduced discussions about philosophy, spirituality, and consciousness into our curriculum, always making sure to cultivate a respectful and inclusive environment. It wasn't about pushing my own views, but about fostering a safe space for thoughtful dialogue and reflection. To my delight, many students who once seemed disconnected began to participate actively in our conversations. Imagine suggesting a project to students where they could explore beliefs about the afterlife by interviewing people from diverse backgrounds. The results? Absolutely incredible. Not only did they gather a wealth of information, but they also walked away with a deeper appreciation for the rich variety of perspectives that exist. The impact of my method didn't go unnoticed. When I received a call from the principal, I expected a talking to. Instead, she praised my efforts. "We've heard from parents that their kids are more thoughtful and engaged," she said. "Whatever you're doing, keep it going." Meanwhile, my relationship with Monsignor Gabriel Moretti deepened significantly. Our chats transformed, becoming more insightful, and we even began practicing morning meditation together. This ritual really brought us closer. One day, he remarked, "It's as if I feel like I've married you twice. There was the version of you I knew before, and now there's this whole new side to you." Honestly, I love them both. My relationship with my mother also shifted. We started delving into our bond, discovering this fascinating ability to sense each other's feelings, even from a distance. What once frightened me is now a source of genuine curiosity. But not everything was easy. Some friends began to pull away, feeling uneasy with my changing perspective on life. That was tough, but I understood it was part of my journey. On a brighter note, I found new friends who resonated with my interests and encouraged me to delve deeper into them. I started sharing my journey through talks at local events, which was pretty nerve-wracking at first. The skepticism I once held was hard to shake off. To my surprise, the audience's response was overwhelmingly positive. Many approached me afterward, often moved to tears, thanking me for articulating what they had felt but never expressed. A particularly memorable experience happened at a medical conference centered on near-death experiences. I walked in with apprehension, but the openness of the attendees caught me off guard. A neurosurgeon approached me after my talk and said, "Your story has literally changed my perspective on consciousness." As I gained recognition in these circles, invitations for scientific studies on these intriguing topics began to flow in. I was thrilled when the opportunity arose to dive into a field that once felt entirely abstract to me. Throughout my journey, I've been careful not to place myself on a pedestal, pretending I have all the solutions. It's crucial to keep that critical mind engaged while still being open to life's mysteries. Reflecting back, I can see how that near-death experience truly transformed me. The once skeptical educator has now morphed into a person eager to embrace life's enigmas and continuously learn from them. What stands out most is this newfound gratitude that greets me each morning. Each day feels like a gift, brimming with moments ripe for personal growth and deeper understanding. Now, as I sit in my office at home, surrounded by familiar letters from students and shelves packed with books, I find myself marveling at the incredible path my near-death experience has led me down. Can you believe how much time has passed since that pivotal moment in the surgical room? The lessons I absorbed from that experience were unexpected and eye-opening. I came to realize that life is far more complex and full of mysteries than I ever imagined. This awareness was not just a fleeting thought or a product of post-surgery haze. It was something palpably real, as solid as the ground beneath my feet. Coming to this understanding has completely shifted my perspective on existence. I've learned to view death not as an end, but as a transition into something different. Like everyone, I still carry a tinge of fear regarding death. But instead of letting that fear hold me back, it has ignited in me a desire to fully embrace each day, treasuring the small joys life offers. Another significant lesson along the way has been the importance of keeping my mind open. My previous skepticism often clouded my sense of wonder and the richness of experience around me. Now I recognize that it's vital to find a middle ground, balancing critical thinking with a curiosity to explore the unknown. Science and spirituality aren't at odds. Rather, they can coexist seamlessly, each offering its own pathway to truth. The depth of love and compassion I experienced during that near-death moment was a revelation in itself. This emotion isn't limited to extraordinary experiences. I believe it's something we can manifest in our daily lives. I aim to radiate that love in every interaction, whether it's with my students, my family, or even a stranger. Kindness, no matter how small, can create ripples that extend far beyond our immediate surroundings. You know, there's this fascinating thing I've learned about how everything in life is interlinked. It's like we're all part of this intricate web of relationships and energies. No one is truly separate from the others. Every little thought I have, every action I take, ripples out into this bigger tapestry. It definitely makes me more aware of how I live each day. Now let's talk about consciousness. I used to think it was just about brain activity, but oh, was I mistaken? Through my own experiences, I've come to realize that consciousness is this expansive realm filled with mysteries. It leaves me with a plethora of questions about the mind and what lies beneath the surface. I also learned how crucial it is to share what I've gone through. For a long time, I kept my thoughts bottled up, afraid of judgment from others. But once I started opening up, I was amazed at how many people wanted to share their own stories too. It became clear that fostering safe spaces for these conversations is vital. It's incredible to connect over our profound experiences together. These dialogues, they've transformed into a driving force in my life. The road I've traveled hasn't been easy, and I've certainly faced fears and doubts along the way, sometimes even questioning everything about my existence. But surmounting those challenges has been a blessing in disguise, helping me understand myself and the world on a deeper level. Now, at 58, I feel more alive and aligned with life than I ever have. Looking back at my near-death experience, I find that what once seemed like a misfortune has turned into a remarkable gift. It changed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined and fuels my desire to help others find meaning in their journeys too. If you're navigating tough times, remember this: you're not facing it alone. Your experiences are valuable and they're worth exploring. Don't hesitate to dive into your feelings, to question them, or to share with those around you. And for all those who haven't faced such experiences, my advice is simple: keep your heart and mind open. There's so much more to the universe than we often recognize. It's filled with wonders and mysteries that science is still trying to comprehend, which is honestly pretty exciting. As I wrap up these reflections, I can't help but feel incredibly thankful. Thankful for life, for all the experiences I've had, and for the lessons that have shaped me along the way. I truly cherish everyone I've encountered on this path who has played a role in my growth. Telling my story really energizes me. I just wish that it could lighten someone's load, ignite a bit of inspiration, or provide a different viewpoint for anyone who happens upon it. Life is such an incredible journey, full of mysteries and wonders, so let's dive into it with enthusiasm. Keep your thoughts wide open and always stay curious. Ultimately, it's about the lessons we learn and how we evolve along the way. Those are the things that truly count.